Welcome to our 11th edition of our Homesteading Series through the West Virginia Department of Agriculture. Tonight's session is on pastured pork and processing, and we have with us Tim Yates from Steelhouse Farm in Gerardstown, West Virginia, over in the Eastern Panhandle. My region, where I'm the planning coordinator, I also put my information in the chat box there if you're looking to get in touch with me. I see that Kacey Gantzer did as well. We've got Ashley on board as well, and I'm sure she'll drop her information in there, and we'll also go over it in some of the slideshow presentation here in just a little bit. We'll start off to go over some of that information and some of our business development items, and then we will pass it over to Tim at Steelhouse and go from there. And as I said, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put those in the chat box, and we will pick those up once we get done the video session with Tim. Here is Tim's information on his farm, name, and also email address. If you're looking to get in touch and learn a little bit deeper about pastured pork, Tim, please feel free to reach out to him. He is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this topic and many, many others. Tim does pork, obviously, but also does chicken, beef, lamb. Tim, what else do you do that I'm missing? Eggs?
Eggs and turkey are the two you missed.
And turkey, there we go. So, and we can go over that in just a little bit. And I see you've got the rest of the crew with you as well. That's great. And they were kind enough to take part in the video session with us while I was out there. So we'll blow through these few slides here, and then we'll get to the video so we can see more of the kids. This is a slide on our West Virginia Grown program. It's West Virginia's premier branding program. We are taking applications on a rolling basis. They are starting in January, renewals, that is. But if you are not a West Virginia Grown member already, please feel free to get on that bus. We are featured here on the slideshow is the new directory that I'm pretty excited about, that goes over and gives a little description of each farm that is registered as a West Virginia Grown in the West Virginia Grown program, and also with the pictures that I love and adore of the product and the little story behind the farm. So look for that to come out. And I believe there's still time to get in on that directory. Don't quote me on that, but if you're interested, please reach out to one of our planning coordinators that will go over here in just a few moments, and we will get you signed up for the West Virginia Grown program, or you can contact the email address at the bottom left-hand screen at wvgrown@wvda.us. Here's a little bit on our Veterans and Heroes to Agriculture. Contact for that is mostly Dane Gaiser. He is our lead on the Veterans and Heroes to Agriculture, along with Monica Schwab and Mary Dickerson. But if you are a veteran, there are many opportunities out there for you to further your agriculture projects. So please reach out, phone number, email address, or you can also go to our webpage and get information for our Veterans and Heroes to Agriculture. And Ashley, with that, let's go to our planning coordinators that we discussed a little bit previously. I'm Nathan Bergdahl in the Eastern Panhandle in the light blue. We've got Kacey Gantzer in the north in the orange. Ashley Amos, who is not a new addition any longer, as we said last week, in the purple in the southeastern part of the state. And we've also got Lacey Davidson in the southwestern part of the state in the green. If you're in the blue in the middle of the state, don't hesitate to reach out to one of us at one of our email addresses here on your bottom right, or you can contact headquarters in Charleston at the number listed in the bottom left, and they can get you in contact with one of us, and we'll try to take care of your needs as best we can. And for next week, there's a little preview. We will be doing consumer impact on local food. And that's one of the big questions that's been floating around in my mind and many others is, and this is probably one of the ones that I'm most excited about. With COVID hitting and people turning to their local farms to get their food, how do we keep that demand flowing and people coming back that were normally the grocery store shoppers coming to the farmer's market, getting their produce from a local producer and having an impact on the community? So join us for that one next week. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you guys will join us as well. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this thing over to Tim. And Tim, you don't have a whole lot to do quite yet. We're going to let the video roll, and then you and the kids can answer a few questions, and we will go from there. So kick back and relax and enjoy Tim, Steelhouse Farms, Pastured Pork.
Hi, I'm Tim Yates from Steelhouse Farm. This is... You can do it.
I'm Sadie Yates. I'm Silas Yates. And we have a lot of fun doing this.
So we are a small family farm here in the Back Creek Valley, which is in Berkeley County in the Eastern Panhandle. We raise market products for the farmers markets and direct sales of chicken, eggs, pork, beef, lamb, and turkey. We sell mostly at farmers markets. All our sales are direct, though, to customers and restaurants. And everything we're doing is naturally based, pastured for sure, all outside, GMO free, no antibiotics, no hormones, all in that kind of vein of agriculture. So today we're going to talk about pigs, and we're going to start, we have it divided into three components: fence, water, and feed. So we're going to start with fence, and for us, rotation is the key to everything we're doing. And so to facilitate that with the pigs, we are using a single strand of electric wire. And so we do not farrow any pigs. We only buy 30 to 40 pound weaned piglets. And when we bring them in, we have to train them to respect the wire. Our experience is once they've learned what this wire means, they will not cross it. That's not to say you won't have a little problems here and there, but for the most part, if you train them correctly to the wire, you can drive them anywhere on your property with this wire. And so I just want you to see a little bit here. What we've got as a general principle is we have a hot wire coming from our barn, which has electricity. So we have a plug-in charger down at the barn, and we're bringing that hot wire out from the barn all the way up here on the hill. So that's this wire. And then the individual paddock is divided off with this other wire, and we just have a little jumper cable to get power into that wire. You can sort of see here, we've got anything that'll hold a wire up. Looks like you got 4 different kinds of posts here from whatever feed store you've got locally. You just need to make sure you're not conducting the power down into the ground. We typically use the metal posts where we need a sturdier connection. You can see we're changing directions there. So we've got a metal post there, but these line posts are just kind of flimsy, and they're just basically holding the wire up off the ground. You want the wire to be about nose height for your average pig. So we'll quickly just walk over here while we're talking about fence. And so we've left this group in a little longer than we normally would so that we could get it in the video. But you can see it's the same kind of deal with the wire. we're using the thicker gauge wire for the training. But what we've done is we have a regular hard fence behind. So I've got about a foot separation there. So when we drop these pigs in, they don't know anything about the wire. So when they touch it, their instinct is to go forward. And so you need something to catch them and physically restrain them within where you're training them. So this circle is closed when they first come in here, and they kind of just bounce around a little bit. But our experience is each pig touches that wire once, maybe twice, and then they never touch it again. They really just learn what that means. And then after a week or so, you can see here we've started to open up the physical fence, and we've left just the wire. And when we come up here and everybody's still on this side, we just keep opening it more and more and more, and then we know they're trained. And so later today, we're going to actually take all this down and let this new group go in with the old group. Okay, so on water, we have 3 different things that we use for water. The first is just your simple pan. We use the rubber pan because the pigs like to lay on them and these don't break. So when they start out, usually we've just got this rubber pan in here, and we're checking them often anyway to make sure nobody's stuck or things like that. So we're just dumping water in there. And if you only have 1 or 2 pigs, you can get away with that for a long, long time. But then we switch them over to a barrel with a nipple waterer. And again, these are available everywhere. And you've seen them at the county fairs, I'm sure, just in a pipe. There's lots of different ways you can rig up this nipple waterer, and they quickly learn that that's where they get their water. And for us, this is very versatile. We can just keep this, move it around, and then you're just adding water to this tank. As you get a little bigger, we've fooled around with making some more type water. So this is 2 nipple waterers just piped in with a little concrete, and then we can just hook a garden hose up to that and run it out to a bigger kind of stock tank. So we can bring a couple 100 gallons of water up here and just have it hooked up to that. Our experience with this is we had to tie it up to something because the pigs want to let water out and start rooting, and so they would want to flip it over. So we were tying it up to a tree to keep that from happening. Otherwise, it's pretty simple. Pigs definitely need water available all the time. They're going to want to do this, and that's just part of the deal. You want to try not to let them tear your ground up too much. And that's one of the reasons, the other one of the reasons we're moving them so often. Again, with our rotation, we're trying to get them on new ground pretty well constantly. So that's the water. Okay, so here we have our feeders. And just to give you an idea, when we started out, we just went to the local feed mill. Most any southern states or Tractor Supply, any type of place like that's going to have just a smaller feeder. This is a 2-hole variety. They also sell them in 1 hole if you want to go really small, but it's just a simple kind of hopper feeder. You dump the feed in here, and then the pigs learn to lift their noses up and get in there to get the feed. Our experience is when you first get the pigs, we would jam a rebar or something to hold the door up and then drag a little feed out in front of it. And the pigs, as soon as they see that feed there, they have a natural instinct to kind of root around, and they'll figure this door out. But it does help to hold it up for that first day or 2. And then you can kind of graduate up. We're running anywhere up to 20 hogs at a time. And so we picked up a little larger feeder. This is just something I picked up at an auction. So even these more medium-sized feeders are available if you're really looking out there on the internet and stuff like that. It's the same principle. Doors to protect things, keep it from getting wet. But then you can see this will hold a whole lot more. And Nathan will probably zoom in there. You can see this is really handy because we can kind of drag it around in our system, but we can come out here and just dump a lot of feed in at once and not have to worry about it. You can get away with, if you're wanting to go really small, you could just use some feed pans and feed them every day. I will warn you that pigs, once they've kind of gotten their fill, they like to play, and so they will waste a lot of feed if the feeder is just kind of sitting there and extremely movable. So just be aware of that possibility. We've had great luck with these. As we've built up to this level, we started with just one of these, then we got two of them and strapped them back to back. This will hold 150 pounds of feed, so you can do pretty well with something this size. I don't even know the numbers. We've gotten to where we had 6 or 8 pigs at a time on just this feeder. So you can get pretty far with something even just this small. And like I said, that's readily available pretty much anywhere. Okay, so the last thing we want to mention is shelter. Pigs are pretty stout. They don't need a whole lot. The main thing is shade, though. You can see in our training corral, we've got this apple crate turned upside down with a little siding on top to keep the water off. But they're mostly just staying out of the sun in that condition. Once they're bigger, we're moving them in our paddocks enough, and what we do is we fence in enough to make sure they've got some bushes, some trees. You'll see over here, the water is strapped to a pine tree. You just want to make sure they've got some shade, especially in the summertime. And so as a wrap up, just if you are at all contemplating adding pigs to your homestead, we highly recommend it. It really is a very simple thing to do. You can just get you some little 40 or 50 pound pigs from a neighbor down the road, and you literally just need a place to put them, a place for them to have water, and a way to get feed. And then you can just kind of watch them grow and then fill your freezer with really delicious meat.
Thank you, Tim. That was wonderful. One of the better sessions I believe we've had. It was short, sweet, to the point, and covered a great deal of information. So let's go to the chat box and see what all we have here. I see that you've answered some questions as we go from Russ. Does anybody else have any other questions for Tim regarding pastured pork? Please bombard him too. He deserves it. And trust me, he can answer the question, I'm sure. So don't hesitate.
So I can talk faster than I can write. I see about a breeding herd. We've chosen not to, mostly as just a time management thing. We, as we saw in the introduction there, we do chicken, turkey, eggs, beef, and pork. And so we just kind of decided adding a furrowing operation would be just another set of chores, another set of infrastructure to maintain. And pigs are readily available. It's probably different in different areas of the state, but around here, there's lots of people that just love to have a couple sows in their backyard, and they're happy to sell them to offset a little bit of feed cost. And so we haven't ever gotten in a complete bind. I mean, there's been a few times we've been sweating a little bit trying to find pigs, but for the most part, we have been able to find little pigs anytime we wanted them. And so we just haven't taken that jump. I imagine if we got a lot bigger, we might kind of have to do that just to have some consistency in the supply. But right now, we're kind of feeling maxed out time-wise, and so it's just easy to talk to our suppliers and make sure we're going to get the pigs that we need versus having a farrowing operation.
Very good. Thank you for that, Tim. And also, we have a question from Lacey. If the pigs get out, how do you get them back in?
Well, I might.
That's a good one that I'm not going to turn off on the kids, but I think the kids would have a good time answering that question.
For this morning's chores, actually, I was filling a water tank, and Sadie came down to tell me, so I'm going to let them answer that question.
So we were getting the pigs water this morning, and as we're driving up there with the buckets, we see that there's 3 pigs, 3 of our smaller pigs that are just on the other side of the wire. They're still enclosed because they're in the opposite paddock that they were in before we moved them, but they're not in the place that they should be. And the wire, it's not broken at all, so we don't know how they got out, but Sadie went and told Daddy, and he came up, and it went super quick, actually, because it was really easy because they were in an enclosed space already. So we just opened up the wire that was separating them between the 2 groups and just drove them in there, like, with sticks and stuff. It wasn't too hard. Sometimes when they, like, get out and they're not in an enclosed space, it's really hard because you have to run around a lot because pigs are really smart. So they'll, like, just jolt around, and yeah, that's how we got them in this morning. It varies depending on the situation.
Yeah, so the pigs want to all be together. So if one gets on the wrong side of the wire, if it's just 1 or 2 separated from the group, that's pretty easy. You can just take the wire down, separating them, and usually you can get them to walk back through. And one thing that Silas said there that's definitely a key is pigs are super smart, and one problem with the system we have is that they, even if you take the wire down, they remember where the wire was. And so sometimes you have to take the wire and the post down before you can get them to kind of cross where that wire was.
And that kind of spurs into one of the questions.
Oh yeah, see, Lacey,
that came up from Lacey. Is that true that they will remember where the fence previously was?
It absolutely is true. And the faster you're doing your rotation, the less true that is. But if you've had a fence in the same place for a while, they definitely kind of remember that. Sometimes what we're doing when we're switching paddocks is we'll take the fence down between the new and old paddock completely, and then we'll drag the feeder across, drag the water across, and then we'll just leave those 2 paddocks connected for a couple hours and go do some other chores. And then by the time we come back, they're all, in where we want them. Another trick we've done is when we move them to the new paddock, instead of just putting the fence back up between the 2, we'll move what we call the back fence about 5 feet into the old paddock. So as they approach where the fence was, they will slow, but if they don't stop themselves quick enough, they still have a little, space before they hit where the wire is now versus, if we just put the wire right back where it was before, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Lacey. To go back to one that Russ threw out, see the youngsters there, do they do well with chores on the pigs?
They do well with chores on everything. This is definitely an excellent crew that I have here. In fact, on Sunday mornings, I go to the farmer's market and they have to do all of the chores by themselves. And so, yes, they are excellent at chores, not only for the pigs, but for the chickens, the cows, all of them. And we do our meat chickens with what most people call chicken tractors, movable floorless shelters. And these two guys even have to move those by themselves on Sunday mornings. So, yes, is the answer.
Very good. Thank you. A question came up. What is your stocking ratio and what is the maximum number of pigs you can corral without having issues, Tim?
Yeah, so we haven't gotten to a maximum that I can tell. We've had as many as, I think 20 is the highest number we've had together at one time. Years ago, we used to keep all the groups separate. They would be in paddocks next to each other, but we were still gathering data to verify, what we needed to charge for a pound of pork chops and things like that. So we were really keeping each group separate, keeping track of the pounds of feed we were putting in there, keeping track of their weights, the whole 9 yards to really get the hard data for each individual batch of pigs. But it was not until I think last year that we started more just running with one group altogether. And like I said, the most we've had, I think, is 20 at one time. Because pigs, we only keep them, since we buy little pigs and raise them up as hogs, we're only keeping them for 5 months. And so, if we're getting little pigs in, it's usually pretty close that we're taking hogs out in the same time period. So we haven't experienced anything that would give me a way to give you a good answer there. As far as our stocking ratio, we're just kind of eyeballing the size of the paddock. I think Joel Salatin has a formula that I have written down in my notes somewhere about, and he bases it on the weight of feed versus a number of pigs to a quarter acre, and then you just need to move them when that feed is gone. So there's like a relationship between those three things. We have more just tried to go on a 2-week cycle because pigs will aerate the soil, dig it up, but then after 2 weeks they start to recompact the soil. So we've been trying to just rotate them every 2 weeks, and based on the number of hogs we have, we're giving them a bigger space or a smaller space, and just kind of eyeballing it more than anything there. We do have, and to go back a little bit about the wire, the field those pigs are in does have a hard fence all the way around the field itself. So that gives us a good bit of insurance with our electric wire. I don't worry too much, though, because our experience is the pigs won't venture too far from the group and their infrastructure. They really kind of home in on that feeder and the waterer. So even if they got out, it's kind of adventurous for them, but they don't usually go very far in our experience.
It's always nice to have a backup, isn't it?
It's very good to have a backup. And that hard fence around the field is, like I said, it's definitely reassuring, to say the least.
Nice little bump.
Because there is the other thing about that field is Buck Hill Road is one border of that field, and so we wouldn't run the pigs there without a hard fence between them and the road for sure.
Yeah. I've got a question for you if no one else does. I know you've dealt with, through our discussions, dealt with a few different processors, especially through COVID. What are some of the, well, just maybe two or so of the top qualities that you look for in someone processing your pork?
So for us, the number one major capital issue is I want to see that they have a system that ensures me that I'm getting my meat back from my animal. If there's 100 points for us, that's 90 of them. We're in the integrity food movement, and so we need to know that the pork we're getting back came from the hog we dropped off. That is, like I said, I can't emphasize that enough, far and away the biggest issue for us. Beyond that, we like dealing with people that have a pretty good presentation. I've dealt with some butchers that don't necessarily clean like if they saw the pork chops and then they're not scraping them, that doesn't present as well to the customers. You've got, then with processors, you can get into, some don't like to cure things, which is definitely a downside because, people like bacon, and then sausage flavors and things like that. For us, because we are predominantly selling directly to customers, we have to have a USDA stamp. So that is a limiting factor in that there aren't as many processors that have that. What that does for us is we can take that meat anywhere in West Virginia, obviously, but we can also, because we're here in Berkeley County, we're just as close to Virginia, Maryland, and DC. So with that USDA stamp, we can go anywhere with the meat. The other kind of thing, butchers, we can't do what we do without them. And that, what Nathan's sort of talking about in some of our conversations, is things have gone kind of haywire and everyone is super busy. And so even though we're dealing with smaller processors, the breakdown on the industrial side of the meat supply has affected all of us. And so just to give you an idea, our processor, Gentle Harvest, he's scheduling now for April of 2021. So any appointments that we can't get one before April of next year. And so you've got to really be looking out into the future. So as a homesteader, if you wanted to do this and you weren't going to process the hog yourself, you want to get it with a butcher, you want to get that appointment as soon as you have your pig. So 5-6 months out sounds a little crazy, but it's what you need to do to make sure you can get it processed. Because it might be different in other regions, but here in the Eastern Panhandle, you are not going to be able to just call a processor, even the custom ones, and say, "Hey, can I bring you a hog in 2 weeks?" They will say, "Sorry, no thanks."
So if someone was trying to fire up a backyard pork production operation, would you suggest talking with the processor first before you even go to purchase pigs to start feeding?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I don't know that I would necessarily do it first, but I would do it very early after you have those pigs on your property, for sure. Because once you have them, you definitely know you can guess when you need your appointment for. Almost all the breeds that you're going to find just commonly are processed around 7 months old. So you could, once you have the animal and you know the age of it, then you can get your appointment. It wouldn't hurt to talk to a processor beforehand, before you got any, because then if if any of them close to you are similar to here and you can't get an appointment for 8 months, well, then you should, maybe wait to get your pigs or, schedule accordingly that way.
Thanks, sir.
Sure.
Great answers for everything, of course. As you can see, Tim's been at this for quite some time and really knows his stuff. Does anybody else have any questions for Tim before we wrap up? And pick his brain while you can, because once we hit end on this thing, he's a tough man to get. He's a little busy. Are you not?
Yeah, you can send me an email or text me or call me, and we'll try our best. But yeah, we keep busy here.
We've also got another question here, Tim, from Kacey Bowden. We continue to look for ways to educate consumers on buying local. What information would you say, or should we share with the community about finding, assessing, and buying local pork products?
Great question. What we're doing, excuse me, we've bought several copies of this book. I don't know if you can see that or if it shows up backwards, but we caught this guy on a podcast earlier this year. So we're pushing this out. This is Dr. Mark Hyman. It's called Food Fix: How to Save Our Health, Our Economy, Our Communities, and Our Planet, One Bite at a Time. He's a doctor that's written about food a lot. He works at the Mayo Clinic. So that's one way we're trying, is handing this book to people and saying, hey, read this. I think that this pandemic, one of the real positives that's going to come from this is a lot more people's eyes have been opened to local food, mostly because of the news stories about the industrial food supply. And as people learn about that, they're confirming that they don't want any part of it, and so they're seeking out local. And so I think that's one of the harder things for us as small farmers. And certainly, Nathan and I have had tons of conversation, because that's the nut we need to crack, is how we connect with the people that are searching for this kind of thing. So it's one thing for them to see that news story and decide they don't want anything to do with the industrial food supply, but it's another for them to find us and make that connection. So if I had a clear answer on that, we'd be, maybe a few steps further along than we are, other than we talk to people at the farmers market as much as we can when they find us there. But I don't know what else we can do as an outreach thing.
Encourage people to get to know their farmers.
Yeah, my wife just chimed in that, we're definitely encourage people to find their local farmer and get to know them and ask them the questions, and make, I'll speak for us. We're happy to talk to anybody about food and anything we're doing. We welcome people to come to our farm and verify that we're doing what we say and that it's what they're looking for as far as clean foods and things like that. So I don't know if we kind of talked around the question there, but I don't know. She said, great. I must have answered it.
I think you did, buddy. Thank you. And,
all right. I see.
A question from Russ there that you can see about constant flow of livestock going out and production planning. Yeah, so
I'm not sure I quite understand if that's a question, other than yes, we do have a constant flow. We're in the middle of processing the E batch of chickens right now. F's in the field. So G is in the brooder house right next to where we're processing chickens. Right now we have 3 batches of meat chickens in various stages. coming and going, that is one of the kind of coincidental things about we process our chickens right next to the brooder house, so they come and go within 20 feet of each other. Hogs, like I said, we raised them for 5 months, so we've got, when Nathan came out to video, those Hampshires that were in the training paddock, they had just come in a week or so before, and then I think it was like 2 days before Nathan was here, we had just hauled out 4 hogs to go to the butcher. So that's pretty constant like that. Our beef is a little more, our beef herd, we're 100% grass fed, so it takes us 3 years to get a beef fully grown for processing. So that's a little bit more of a longer curve.
You do about one a year though, right?
We,
1 or 2?
well, we're doing like 4 beef right now a year. So yeah, I hope that answers your question about the flow there.
Russ, did that answer your question? You want to chime in here, buddy? Or chat? Yes? Yep, sounds good. So,
Okay.
Sounds about right. I was just wondering if, when you have the piglets coming in and hogs going out, you have a constant income of something going out for sale each month.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Just you're a business, and you've got livestock coming in, and you've got hogs and chickens and things going out like each month for an income every month.
Correct. Yeah, and we try, I mean, we've sort of figured out over the years the ebb and flow. So we're going to have more hogs ready to butcher from April through November and then we kind of have a lull from January to the beginning of April usually, because the farmers market is closed then. We try to have as few as we can over the winter, although you have to have the little ones started if they're going to be ready to process in April. But things are a little more sleepy around here from January till the middle of March. As far as the pigs, we like those Hampshires you saw in the training corral. They would have been ready the end of December, which is always nice to have a batch like that ends right at the end of the year. But I couldn't get appointments until the beginning of January, so they will actually go on next year's books, even though most of the costs will go on this year.
Biggest question is more that income. Like it's pretty constant monthly.
Oh, you think so? Okay. Yeah. So if it's about income, then yes, it's more of a constant. It is. If you're doing it as a business, you do have a lot of you're going to have all the costs up front, and then you're going to get a big load of pork back. And so if you need to have enough saved up to where you can sustain that, and then if you're selling it by the cut, you're going to slowly get that money back. If you're selling halves and wholes, that's nice because you can, when you pick it up from the processor, then you can get a bigger chunk of income back with those. Hope that clarifies a little more.
Yeah, I think Russ is content with that answer, and I think he also chimed in on the bookwork as well. So, yeah,
I'm entering in the chat. Well, sorry, Russ, but I just sent another little bit of bookwork for you. That's the title of the book I held up there. I realized I could just type it in there.
Very good. I appreciate that, Tim. And I appreciate you joining us. Does anybody, again, have any last questions for Tim before we go? The book, Food Fix, Dr. Mark Hyman put that in the chat for us. Thank you for that. And thank you for joining us, Tim. I've got one last question for you, and then we'll let everybody get out of here. Steelhouse Farm, where can I find your product?
Well, the best place to start is steelhousefarm.com. That should be easy enough. You can get our phone number, email, text, anything on there. If you want to come see us, we're at the Berkeley Springs Farmers Market every Sunday from 10 to 2. You can call us and come right out to the farm and get some things. We go into Martinsburg every other Tuesday. But just take a look at our website, and then you can email us from there. And we're not, like Nathan said, we're not always the fastest with email or things like that, but we'll get back to you, and we're always happy to talk.
That just goes back to consumer education, Tim. You know, knowing that you're not going to get a farmer right on the horn right now is part of the learning curve. So that's just as educational as anything, really.
Well, it's hard now because you can't answer your phone unless it's a name, because you get, I don't know about everybody else, but I get a lot of calls that aren't really calls anymore.
I think we all do. All right, folks. I do not see anything left in the chat box. I believe Tim has covered a wide basis for us this evening. Tim, thank you so much. And family, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the visit. It was wonderful as always every time I get out, but very, very detailed, great information. So thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us. I hope you'll join us next week, same time, Tuesday, 6 o'clock. And it is